Welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! This is a podcast based on a blog of the same name because, dear diary, we unite as couch potatoes once more to honor some stellar entertainment from the past 8 years. And our name says it all. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out the blog at couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panelists and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the blog or the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and via Google Play to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including, but not limited to, How to Get Away with Murder, Gotham, Once Upon a Time, Supernatural, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, and Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Plus, new episodes are in the works, including revisits for The 100, Doctor Who, The Originals, Game of Thrones, Stranger Things. There'll be a final episode discussing Broadchurch to say goodbye to the mystery drama from across the pond. We'll be launching new panels covering Grace and Frankie and The Good Place. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll be looking back at one of our most popularly requested panels, Friends. What's more, CPU also goes live. We've been live from the Bunker, comedy outlet Mondays at Dog Story Theater and Grand Rapids Comic Con. We're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, so make sure you like us at our Facebook page, our Twitter, follow us at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, and or our Pinterest at CPU Podcast, or subscribe to the blog, our YouTube channel, our iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Play. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we're always seeking new panelists, so if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback, and at this point you can insert joke here, because we're just going to take your feedback. I mean, I'm not going to pretend, that's all I'm saying. Today we're around the water cooler, and our devoted panel of vampire enthusiasts, namely Jen and Kelsey, have gathered together once again to take a look back one final time at departed fantasy series The Vampire Diaries, which aired from 2009 to 2017 on the CW. If you aren't already aware, from time to time, CPU discusses shows of all types, but usually of some fame or notoriety to reminisce about, to consider whether or not they age gracefully, like a vampire feeding on live humans, or don't age quite as well, like a vampire feeding on vervain anything. As such, this is another chapter of our Looking Back podcast episodes, wherein we review a show that is gone, either via natural end or cancellation, and today we reminisce about the phenomenon known as the Vampire Diaries. The Vampire Diaries once again follows the life of Elena Gilbert, played by Nina Dobrev, a teenage girl who falls deeply in love with a 162-year-old vampire named Stefan Salvatore, played by Paul Wesley. Their relationship becomes increasingly complicated as Stefan's vicious, malevolent, and mysterious older brother, Damon, played by Ian Somerhalder, returns with the plan to wreak havoc on the town, seeking revenge against his younger brother for turning him into a vampire against his will. Because Elena resembles their past love, Catherine Pierce, also played by Dobrev, Damon begins to fall in love with Elena. Elena undergoes many hardships and deaths of close family members and loved ones throughout her high school experience, and her college experience has ups and downs too. For a more detailed plot summary, because we've been covering this show now for several episodes, listen to those prior episodes about the Vampire Diaries or check out our other Vampire Diaries entries on the blog. If you didn't already know, you can click the floating box, the top right of the header, and search for any blog entry or prior podcast episode. It's easy and fun, so give it a try. For now, our compelled group of Vampire Diaries panelists. In the second episode, we're going to look back at the entire series and consider whether the show was successful as a whole now that we've seen it beginning to end. As always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have viewed the entire show to date and will, let's face it, discuss sensitive plot points. So for those of you who have not watched any of the Vampire Diaries, first of all, for shame, correct that. Second, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel. How are you?
Good. Good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Well, what we're going to do, because we have to do it one final time, is the character question. But because we're looking back Now, what I'm going to do is give you the character breakdown, the standard CPU character question that changes with each show we do, but what you have to do is provide 2 answers. Tell us how you were at the beginning of watching the show when you first sat down to start watching it, and then tell us how you ended up, which is a reminder from the second half, of our season 8, but remind us anyway. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, so for the final time, what is your temperature? How do you feel? What is your interest? How did you like the Vampire Diaries? Did you watch it? Because though you acknowledge the show had its flaws, you love vampires, and maybe it was so bad it was good, and or you believe that the show could redeem itself, and that it did in the end, plus you're most invested in and or love the brothers Salvatore, like Damon Salvatore. Did you watch it because you needed to believe it could atone for its wrongdoings? And or you watched it to look after Damon, the so-bad-he's good brother, who might have been your favorite character in the end because you're still invested in the brothers Salvatore, like Stefan Salvatore? Did you watch it because you needed to stand by its side until the end, good or bad? Plus you were invested in the romances, especially Stefan and Caroline, like Caroline Forbes. Did you watch it because psychically you knew it would get its groove back and you needed it to do so for yourself and for the love you felt for the characters in the romances, especially Bonnie and Enzo, or Bonnie, she had so many, like Bonnie Bennett? Did you watch it because your biological children watch it and you wanted to protect them from watching things that might scare them, at least until they're able to learn something from the scary things, like Alaric Saltzman? Did you watch it because though you have a long history of making really poor choices, you made a good choice when it counted and are at peace with how it all ended, like Enzo? Did you watch just the series finale or just the first few seasons because you needed to see how it all turned out and whether Elena or Catherine would return? And you'd moved past the breakup between the show's 2 leads long enough to want a good fitting end for the fans, like Elena Gilbert. You don't know why you watched it. It's pretty abnormal and you prefer to stay as ordinary and as human as you are, but all your friends like it, so you are or have been drawn back in even when you think you got out. Of course, you may like it more than you've been letting on after all this time, like Matt Donovan. Or did you stop watching or jump the shark because, spoiler, you got sucked into hell? Or only watched it to hate watch it because that's the kind of manipulative, hell-ruling bitch you are, like Catherine Pierce. So, who would like to start?
First of all, I really liked the Catherine one, and that made me laugh, but I can't pick that one because I didn't stop watching it.
That's true. What's your name, by the way?
Oh, I'm Kelsey.
Hi, Kelsey.
Hi. So, I think that I started as Damon, for sure, because I love vampires, and I love vampire stuff, and so I started watching it. Also, I really enjoyed that, the first episode was just straight up mocking Twilight, so that made me happy. And then I probably ended still kind of Damon, but a little more, I don't remember what I said, actually, but I would say, a little more Stefan, because it started to kind of lose me for a while, but I wanted to see how it ended, so the whole atoning for its sins thing, I guess. Started Damon and ended Stefan.
I watched all 8 seasons.
And watched all 8 seasons. I did.
Welcome back, Kelsey.
Thanks.
I'm Jen.
Hi, Jen.
And I'm a little confused because none of those really fit the beginning.
You can make them fit however
And I don't
want.
remember what I was, but I know I was sucked in until season 3 or 4. Then I started losing, but...
Maybe you're Elena. That was part
I
of
think
Elena's
I might have been. Yeah, maybe that was then. But I know in the end, I'm the first 3, the Damon, Stefan, and Caroline. I know I'm not supposed to be more than 1 or 2, but...
I mean, you can do what you want. There's nobody on this panel that will totally judge you. They get a lot judgier on other panels. Welcome back, Jen.
Thank you.
And of course, I'm Kylie, and I'm participating as well as moderating, as I have been this whole time. I started as Damon. I would probably end as Damon and Stefan. I loved the whole show from beginning to end. There was definitely weak points, definitely points at which I did start to question my choices a little bit. But I also loved the brothers. I love Ian Somerhalder, and I love Paul Wesley, and really they were the reason to watch in the end, as it turns out. So, because of them, I really enjoyed the show. Now, am I kind of sad and or relieved that it's done? A little of both, yes. Because it kind of put me, it broke the habit, if you will, which might have been an unfortunate one. So, yes, let's talk about the show now.
Okay.
What this is a looking back. So it's not supposed to be as specific as some of our reaction panels. Just kind of talking a little bit more about what the show meant to you. What did you love? What did you hate overall, kind of thing. And we'll kind of go through some of these questions, some of which we've kind of covered in previous podcasts, but there's new spins on old questions. So, First of all, just talk about the show in general. Remind us what you loved or what you hated. And now, instead of going one specific season or one specific half season, this is from season 1 to season 8.
Ooh, that's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I mean, well, like I said, I love vampires. I love vampire stuff. I thought they did a good job of mixing, like, traditional lore with giving it an interesting twist, but not a stupid twist, like vampires that glitter.
There's nothing wrong with glitter.
That was a sound effect. That was a disagreement.
I'm not a Twilight fan either. I'm just saying that.
You're just playing devil's advocate. I understand.
I mean, I like glitter too, just not on vampires.
Exactly.
It's weird. Anyway, so I liked it for that aspect. I thought that it did some interesting things with vampire. You know, the whole Vervain thing was something I hadn't heard before as part of lore, so that was kind of cool. And the whole trying to figure out what the line, where vampires came from, and the line that they came down, you know, with the originals and then Cain and all that stuff was compelling.
A vampire pun.
You're welcome. Yeah, I don't know. I'm running out of things. I mean, I know there's more, but as a general reaction, that's my general thoughts.
I'm the same. I love vampires. I love anything like supernatural like that, werewolves and stuff like that. And I think that's what drew me to this show. And then also the romantic aspect of it, you know, between Elena and the two brothers and everything. I really enjoyed everything. You say it's so hard to look at everything, you know, in a whole, because really after season 5 for me, it's just the only reason I did not stop watching is because I had so much time already invested and I had hoped it would get better. And I'm fine with a series ending after so many years. I just wish it would have ended a little differently. And I think that it didn't because of the friction between the actual two actors of the show not getting along or whatever. Nina had to leave or whatever. She chose to leave.
I wish they would have just ended it then.
They should have. If they would have just ended it on a more, I won't say positive, because it wasn't really negative how it ended, I guess. It might have been better.
I think it actually might have been better. I think they could have just had her, maybe not die. I think people might have been straight up mad if that happened. But, like, if the end was her being put in a coma or something. I mean, the ending they did was really nice, but it was kind of Disney. And, like, okay, everyone gets what they want in the end.
Yeah.
And you're all happy. And that montage, I still think that montage was really poorly constructed to the point where it was like,
confusing.
Wait, this is happening now? Wait, why do they still look young if they're supposed to be old? Oh, they're in, like, their heaven or something? What's going on? So that whole thing was still weird for me. It was
confusing for me. I don't know.
Yeah. So I think maybe if they had just ended it a little more dramatically at that point... Mm-hmm. It might have been better, because I did feel kind of like they were starting to, I don't remember what the expression is, beat a dead horse, is that it? A little bit.
So what do you mean by dramatically?
Well, like, I don't know, like, if it could have just been a cliffhanger ending, I think that would have been cooler. Like, if it had just ended, I mean, maybe they could have wrapped up a few more points, but for the most part, if it just ended with, was it Kai that put her in the coma? Who put her in the coma? It was somebody else, and then he changed the spell, right? Or I thought Kai had something to do with it.
He might have had something to do, but I feel like he was already in his hell dimension at that point. It revolved around the fact that she had taken the vampire cure, and actually, I think you're right. There was some sort of spell that linked her and Bonnie.
Right.
One couldn't survive. Or they
and I do think that was a Kai thing, because it's pretty brilliant. And he was pretty brilliant. He was probably my favorite villain in the whole show.
Yeah, he was mine,
honestly.
For sure.
Really? Mm-hmm. Over Catherine?
Yeah. I hated Catherine.
I didn't. She was alright. I mean,
she was just...
Bravo to Nina for pulling off, though, two distinct characters.
Oh, yeah, no. She's a great actress for that. I just, like, I don't think... Well, we weren't supposed to like Catherine, first of all, so she did a great job with that. But I don't have a whole lot of admiration for characters who do whatever they have to do to survive. You know, who compromise their own integrity, and she's one of those where she would go harm herself in some way to benefit herself later. And I don't like that. I'd rather have the snarky brilliantly evil villains.
Okay.
Personally. Which is why I like Kai better. I mean, all villains to some point sacrifice themselves, part of themselves for...
Well, she's self-involved. That's, I think, the biggest thing about Catherine, is that she's ultimately selfish and only cares about herself.
A preservationist, yeah.
And maybe for me, it might be the fact that it's a male versus a female. I think males just, for me, make better, evil, sinister people. You know what I mean? Like,
wow, there's a lot to unpack in that conclusion.
She was too pretty, she's manipulative and all that, but it's not really, like, dark, evil. I didn't get that from her.
Yeah,
whereas
they
I
really
did
don't
Kyle.
make a lot of
I was very afraid of
that
him
for women. Honestly,
I don't think. Yeah, they don't. I don't think they do.
It'd be cool if they did. I would like that.
I would love to watch a TV show and be terrified of a female character that's supposed to be evil. But
like
I have yet
Bates
to really.
Misery.
Well,
She
yeah,
was
that
scary.
was kind of creepy. Kai just was like, ugh.
Well, they're two different kinds of sociopaths, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He's a sociopath that really just relishes being a sociopath, whereas she's a sociopath with a purpose.
Yeah. That might be the difference.
It'd be like, you know what would be... Did you ever see Girl Interrupted? Mm-hmm. Okay, like Angelina Jolie's character in that was a sociopath, but like if that type of character was in public, not separated from... Like, she was scary in that movie.
Yeah, she was scary in that movie.
So they exist,
They
I
do.
guess, is my point. But yeah, I think, at least in this show, I think the writing was stronger for the male villains in general. Because they always made Catherine end up... She would get real evil and then she'd, like, run away or something. Like, she would escape somehow and then not have to... I don't know. I just didn't feel like she was as hands-on evil.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of things that you said, so let me kind of talk about
Break it down.
Well, let me kind of go through it. So for my purposes, I started watching the Vampire Diaries because of the vampires. But I stayed because of the twists. This show was really, really good at, especially in the first half of its 8 seasons, creating twists where you literally did not see what was coming next. And one of the biggest twists was the Doppelganger and learning about Catherine.
And then they overdid it because everybody had a freaking doppelganger.
Yeah.
That's true. That was in
And
season
then the
5 and 6.
doppelgangers had doppelgangers.
I think that's when it started
Yeah.
for me.
The downhill.
Being...
Yeah. But the Doppelganger piece of it itself and the Catherine storyline, I actually really enjoyed. Part of it was because, and you can take this for however you want to take it, but her feelings for the Salvatores were always complicated. There was some part of her that actually cared about them and liked them or loved them, but ultimately she was a vampire. She was a vampire who relished being a vampire. And the boys at various turns throughout their life had their humanity switch or emotion switch or whatever they called it in this show on, and so they had more guilt and more, moral compassion, right? So Catherine, yes, on the one hand, maybe she wasn't as menacing, but at the same time, she really created a lot of problems. One of the problems she created was the fact that she was one of Klaus's sirelings, and she brought the originals to Mystic Falls. And I think that was one of the more brilliant, original, for lack of a better term, pieces of lore that you were talking about, was to talk about the origins of the vampires. And it created a whole spin-off show, which Jen and I watch, as we've covered before. But it's brilliant.
It is.
I think you should give it another try.
So good. It is so good.
In some ways, I think it surpasses this show, largely because it's a piece of vampire fiction that nobody's ever done before.
Right.
So there's a lot of politics. There's some romance, but it doesn't overtake the show. There's just a lot of different things that they can play around with, and that all was spawned, if you will, or sired, if you will, from this particular show. Now, I agree, at some point, and really it was season 5, was probably one of its worst seasons, if not its worst season. Maybe season 7 was the worst. I don't know. I go back and forth. Because season 6 was Kai.
Right.
And that was kind of an uptick. Season 5 was the Doppelgangers and the Travelers. Season 7, Season 7 was the time jump and the whatchamacallits. I forgot what they're called. Valerie and the
Travelers?
no,
not that.
They weren't the Travelers.
Oh man,
That's gonna drive me crazy.
they're messed up vampire people that the Salvatore's mom was taking care of. I can't remember what their name was. Just now. See, I almost think season 7 was better than season 5 because of the mom character.
I think it was.
Yeah,
Season
I liked
5 was
it
just,
with the mom character. I also really liked... I liked the family characters a lot too. I feel like they could have done more with them.
So season 5 was the mess. That was the one where everybody's doppelgangers. Stefan had doppelgangers, and Elena had doppelgangers going back in time, and then the travelers, the werewolves were involved, the witches were involved. There was so much going on.
And the travelers were weird too. Like, I don't think I ever fully understood what they were trying to do with those.
I don't think they ever really fully explained them. I think that storyline just kind of fizzled out.
Well, it certainly took a back seat to the Hell on Earth storyline because Bonnie was acting as that conduit to the other side, remember?
Yeah. Right.
Because she spent half her time on the show dead.
That's right.
Poor Bonnie.
Bonnie cannot just, stay in life.
No.
So there was a lot of good things that went on with the show, but I do think I agree with the conclusion that it went on too long. Definitely when Nina decided to make her exit, it's typically a mistake 9 times out of 10 for shows to go on without their top billed actor or top billed character. It almost always doesn't work. It almost always fundamentally changes the show. And as much as I love Ian Somerhalder could have been in a show by himself, but one of the reasons why the Damon character worked so well was because he was playing off of the other characters, including her.
Specifically her, actually.
Yeah.
Because she was the one who really gave him motivation to have his humanity, she kind of balanced him out. And then when she wasn't there and he was still struggling, it just got kind of tired and old.
Exactly. So they really should have found a way, I thought, as well to end it. I agree that the ending of the show was a little too cookie cutter because it was rushed. It felt like there was something they were going for and they put it together real fast and it didn't really land in a way that was as satisfying as it could be. I don't have any problem with them trying to make it a happy ending. I think it would have, after all this time, unless they came up with some really creative artsy way to do it, I don't know that they could have made an ending that was dramatic but in a way that wasn't happy, I guess.
Yeah.
I think fans would have been dissatisfied. I think they had to do some fan service. I just think that because they only had Nina for those 2 episodes, they had to quick figure out some way to reintegrate Elena and Catherine and make it that button as opposed to giving it more of an organic ending.
Yeah. Well, and I guess they brought Catherine back again, and that was kind of fun because everyone knew that Nina was coming back. And so then to be like, oh, but she's back as Catherine was kind of a fun twist for people who already knew ahead of time. But I really didn't feel like it was that exciting of a Catherine moment, if you will. And then when Elena did come back in the end, I was just underwhelmed by it because I don't think they had the chemistry anymore. And it was all kind of, again, it was slightly montaged, it was kind of overscored, really. It wasn't even underscored. And it was like, I want to hear what they have to say to each other, like those actual characters. And I'm sure they did it because it was probably awkward for maybe both of them, I don't know, to have a love scene together again. But if you're going to do it for the fans, then do it for the fans.
They do it all the time in movies. Those actors are fine. I mean, get over yourselves.
Right.
Act
There's
like
a
adults.
professionalism that
they could have totally. Enough money.
There's that too.
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
But
And that's a fair observation because I do feel like she still had chemistry with Paul Wesley. They had a really nice, closing scene before the montage where they actually talked to each other and there was definitely a button of closure for them.
Yeah.
But you didn't get that same satisfaction with Damon and Elena.
No. And then they weren't even they did that montage where they're both in heaven, and then Damon and Elena weren't even together in their afterlife.
Yeah.
Because apparently they were happier, she's happier with her family and he's happier with, Stefan or whatever. And I was like, what? This makes no sense for the whole way they've set up Damon and Elena as this epic relationship, you would think that then they would be spending eternity together, and they never, they didn't even really hint at that, I don't think.
Especially since they meditated so heavily on the romantic aspects of the show.
Yeah.
It was kind of an unromantic ending.
Yes. Yeah. Which is fine if that's the type of show it is, but it wasn't.
Right.
Yeah.
There's lots of angst and romance and coupling and uncoupling in this show. Mm-hmm. Was that good or bad?
I think it was. I mean, I thought it was good, but I think that it's good if that's what you're watching for. You know, like it was kind of just like a soap opera, which I was okay with taking it as like this is a soap opera. You know, if I tried to take it more seriously than that, I probably would have been annoyed with the romances, but I didn't really take it that seriously, so I thought it was good.
So for me, it's kind of interesting as I'm listening to you guys, but also thinking about my feelings. And I think, this show started 8 years ago. Mm-hmm. So 8 years ago, I'm a different type of viewer than I am now. Mm-hmm. I enjoy different things now than I did back then. Back then, I was more of the romantic, wanted that. And so you got some of that in the beginning of that. But as the show went on and my personal choices and likes and dislikes started to change, and so in the end I was feeling it was too much of that, and I didn't enjoy that part. I didn't like that part. I think it could have been less than it was, and have more of the supernatural aspect going on. And I mean, that is so weird because I like soap operas. I used to, back then, but now I don't. So it's kind of a shift in things, but...
Well, and I've never really watched a soap opera, and I don't typically get into that kind of stuff, but I think they kind of hooked me in with the supernatural aspect, and then once I realized how soap opera-like it was going to be, I was just kind of like, okay, well, I'll keep watching.
They do put that in, I mean, when you say Vampire Diaries, you kind of know it's going to have that kind of quality, that soap opera kind of, it's more geared to females than it is the males and stuff like that. So I guess it's supposed to be that way, but as my likes changed and everything, and I'm glad it ended the way, I guess. I mean, it's done. The originals, there's not that as much of that romance, and I love that show.
So what about you, Jen? Do you think the finale was a proper send-off? Kelsey was negative on that.
I was just really confused. Like, I didn't understand for a minute there. I mean, it took me so many minutes of watching, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like it was too confusing for me, I guess. And I would have liked it. Yeah, I would have liked it a lot differently ended. You can end things, but like Kelsey was saying, that between the actors, I think even if you ended it differently, you would have still had that lack of chemistry that you once had between Elena and Damon. But I don't know how you would end it. I just know I would like it differently. I don't know.
Or, I mean,
you don't know what...
it would have been epically tragic, but, they didn't have to bring Elena back.
No, they didn't have to bring her back.
Especially if they brought her back as Catherine already. Then you still feel like, okay, all the original actors were in the season finale. It's all... I don't know. As much as I wanted them to bring Elena back, if they're not going to have the right chemistry, then it almost was more of a disservice to me as someone who is invested in that relationship to be like, oh, okay. And it's not like, time had passed for her. Literally, she went to sleep madly in love with him, and now she wakes up and she's, maybe for him things might have been more complicated, but it just didn't, I don't know, it didn't make sense. And of course we don't know the details of their breakup and how difficult it might have been for them to, quote unquote, get over it. Or act.
Well, so maybe you're a good actor, the viewers aren't going to see any of that.
If you believe the gossip, apparently it was very difficult.
That's what I've heard. And so I'm sympathetic to that, but as an amateur actor, I'm like, I think you could have done it though. They could have taken more takes or something to make it better. I don't remember who directed that final episode, but I felt like they could have done something, or a different camera angle, or I don't know, something to make it look better than it was, because it just was really underwhelming, I thought. Because really the whole show ended up being about her and Damon in the end. I mean, a little bit about Damon and Stefan, of course. That was always the close tie subplot, almost a tie subplot, but they really made that, they banked on that relationship so heavily that I think to end with it ended up doing the show a disservice because it just wasn't the same anymore.
Well, and I almost, to respond to that, the relationship I was probably more invested in was Damon and Stefan.
Mm-hmm.
I think over the course of the 8 seasons, they really did well to show an evolution between where they started and where they ended. But at the same time, in the last 2 seasons, even though they had ample opportunity to do so, and they kind of went there in the 8th season, in the second half, by, having them turn off their emotion switches or whatever they're called, and sort of going on this vampire bender and then coming out of it together kind of a thing. There was a way they could have developed it so that we maybe even could have sort of have forgotten about Elena for a minute, or at least until it was relevant again. They spent a lot of time not forgetting about her, almost to the point of overcompensating. So they kind of wrote themselves into this corner.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And I think that if they had spent less time on the distractions. And by distractions, I mean the supporting characters. I did not care about... I'm sorry, I've never, ever, ever liked Caroline. I know there were people who do.
I thought she had her redeeming moments, but overall, I didn't really care about that. You know what made me care about her was when she got pregnant and had the twins. Like, that's when I was like, okay, now she's like important in this. But before that, I didn't care about her. And then even still, I was like, just let Alaric raise them and go away.
Right. That's how I felt, because I just felt like her character, even though they ended up giving her some dimension, of all of the characters, she was probably the flattest, if you think about it. She didn't really have other interests beyond being a part of society, being a mom, and Stefan, at least in the end. And I didn't care about that. I sort of cared only in the sense that I felt they were both tragic characters and they found each other. I sort of cared about Bonnie and Enzo, but I didn't need Bonnie and Enzo.
No, right,
if they didn't show up in an episode, I was okay with that.
Yeah.
I think watching any hour of this show without Damon and Stefan would have been tragic.
Yeah.
And
boring.
I probably would have stopped. I wouldn't have watched it.
Yeah. To me, they're the 2 characters in the end. And I would have felt maybe a little bit more that it was Damon and Elena all along, too. But she kind of clinched that when she jumped shark. She didn't jump the shark, she jumped the ship. But I don't know. I guess I don't have a lot of sympathy for Nina in the end. And now that she's in what looks to be a very poor remake of Flatliners, so I'm like, where are you going with this? You're making poor career choices. They just didn't spend enough time, I feel, really centering on the Salvatores. And there was a lot of history they could have still delved up about the Salvatores, so that by the end of the show, maybe not so much the Elena with Aunt Jenny or whatever, but at least the Damon and Stefan moment would have landed a lot better. I have passion. Some passion.
Well, I missed the interaction that Klaus and them added to that show before they went off on their spin. And I understand why they did the spin-off. There's a lot of information to put in one show between their whole thing and, the Salvatore brothers, their whole thing.
Well, and let's just be honest. Joseph Morgan's charisma by himself.
Yeah, by himself, yeah.
It would have been too much charisma in one show.
But I think if they would have had them come back, if they would have had the 2 shows kind of intertwine a little bit more than they did, I mean, how many episodes did the originals come back to the Vampire Diaries?
Not very many, and really only Klaus.
And it was really only Klaus. And I know that they have come into the originals a few times, but I just think if they would have intertwined, it would have made it more interesting, like maybe gave more of that history and that backstory and stuff.
Well, this is a really good point, because they did create a spin-off, and they did establish that it was a universe, and the Arrowverse, and the Marvels, and all Buffyverse. I mean, they all did it. It seems like they did not make a lot of good choices towards the universe either.
Right.
There was a lot of story possibility they didn't deal with there.
Deal with it. Yeah.
They all film in the same general area. So...
Or, why would Klaus not have pounced on Caroline being single for the 2 seconds she was single? Stuff like that.
That would be
I was more interested in Caroline and Klaus than I was in Caroline and Tyler or Caroline and Stefan.
Yes.
personally.
I agree with that. I never.
I mean, I don't really know why he saw it in Caroline, but
but for some reason, you put her up against Klaus, and there was something. I don't know.
They have chemistry.
Maybe it's it probably is the chemistry.
Well, I know you say that she's probably going to be on originals.
Yeah, so they've been teasing her possibly recurring on the originals for season 5.
That would be awesome.
I remember you saying that. So yeah, maybe that could be awesome. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, it could be.
But yeah,
especially given where season 4 ended. I mean,
oh yeah,
they're gonna all be, in places.
Spoilers.
I said in places.
I know. I was just reminding you.
So Caroline showing up at this opportune time for him could be very interesting.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I say yeah, like I watched the show. I don't know what you're talking about.
You should watch the show. Get past the first season. It gets so much better.
So much better.
So boring.
No, it gets so much better.
It gets so much better.
I've tried 3 times to watch the first season.
I mean, I know Davina is a real annoying character.
I can't remember who that is.
The little girl.
Oh,
the witch.
Yeah, blew everything up.
She's the teenage angst portion of the show. I could do without her. But apparently people like her too. So, I don't know. Yeah, passion. Do you think the Vampire Diaries would hold up with the passage of time? Why or why not?
No.
I don't think so.
Why not?
I don't know. I feel like because I already feel like somehow the first season already feels dated, like if you go back and watch it. I don't really have any facts to back that up other than I just felt that way. When I went back and watched it, it just seemed like, oh wow, this is old.
I think the only way they could make it work is if they brought in new characters. Not many, just 1 or 2 new characters and fit them in somehow to make spice things up a little bit more.
This is more a question if...
Either good or evil.
Say you so we finished watching the show and you let 5 years, 10 years pass and you decided to pick it up again. Do you think this would still hold up?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I had a totally wrong idea. No, I don't think it would.
And why not?
Because I think, especially the first season, they riffed so heavily off of Twilight, and it was so timely at that time. Wow, that's good.
Time after time.
Good speaking, Kelsey. But it was so appropriate in the moment, and now, I mean, Twilight, I don't even know if kids today know what Twilight is anymore. I'm getting so old. That feels like not that long ago, but it really was. And I feel like there's a certain audience that would be interested in this show, particularly even though I'm much older than this, like teenagers. And I think those teenagers would be like, I don't get it.
I think they'd get bored with it.
Yeah.
I think that teens today, because that actually was how it was geared to teens.
And we're all much older than that.
Yeah, which is why I was maybe saying something about our maturity levels. I don't know.
I was much younger when I started watching it.
8 years younger.
But still not a teen.
Maybe
but I think that the teenagers today maybe want more action. And
less romance.
Like she said, Twilight. It came out during that time when that was big. Why? I don't know, but
vampires were the thing at the time.
Yeah,
they had a resurgence of popularity because of Twilight.
But it seems to me that people today, even kids today, want that more gory, action, scary kind of thing more than the.
So you're saying they're more jaded?
Yeah, sure.
Oh man.
Look at her. It's because of our society. Don't get me
started.
Well,
and there's such a push, I think, too, among the younger generation for diversity and for less stereotypical forms of romance. And I don't think that the Vampire Diaries was well suited for that. Like we briefly talked about before we actually started recording. Like they had one lesbian couple in that family.
If the word is on the tip of my tongue.
I know, I can't think of it. But in that family, they had the one lesbian couple who I actually really liked. And I really liked the way they died. I just wish that, first of all, there's that whole movement about how come all the, especially lesbians, seem to die on everything. So that was kind of unfortunate that Vampire Diaries played into that. Even if they did want that to be their ending, because it was fairly epic Thelma and Louise style. Like, I wish they had had more longevity, and I wish they had had more characters like that on the show, especially since you're dealing with the supernatural and immortal beings, you would think that they would have evolved past the pettiness of romance, or at least traditional romance, and I don't know, I just feel like that something along those lines would possibly be more intriguing to a younger generation right now than the typical female caught in a love triangle between two males. And I just don't think that that's as exciting. I think it's been overdone, and I think that people are looking for different things.
Okay.
That is my lecture today.
All right. Good speechifying.
Thank you.
It's hard for me to answer this question because what I have known in my decades of living on this earth is that vampires always come back around. Mm-hmm. And people always rediscover the vampire properties that have happened, whether it be Anne Rice, whether it be Buffy and Angel and all of them, even going back to really old movie style horror,
Dracula and Nosferatu,
all of those. They always seem to come back around, and new people find them. And this show is not hokey like Twilight. Twilight was all romance. I mean, there's no, I don't want to say substance, might be too harsh, but it's much more shallow of a fiction, relatively speaking. Now, to me, the Vampire Diaries always represented something between Twilight and, say, True Blood, which was on at the same time, which was gorier and more action-driven and had more progressive relationships and lots of sex because it was HBO and all of that stuff versus sort of the G-rated Twilight. I feel like Vampire Diaries was sort of the PG-13 version because it was on network TV, it was CW, but obviously adults appreciated it. And possibly more than teens. I don't actually know, apart from one person, who in the teenage age group was watching the Vampire Diaries at any point.
I guess maybe it would have more longevity if they marketed it differently. I just think the way that they marketed it initially was very driven towards the romance and the love triangle.
Well, and really that's how they told the story.
Right.
For some
and you're right, there are other elements of that. I just don't know if there was enough of it right away to get somebody hooked if they came back and watched it again. Unless they were super into the soap opera style. So then in that case maybe. But I also just feel like some of the references might be dated by that point, because it seems like there were a decent amount of like pop culture references and stuff. So.
Well, and I'll tell you what, I don't think this is the type of show that can enjoy multiple viewings. Because once you know the twists, I feel like the story itself would kind of lose its impact.
Yeah.
And it would be all the romance. So I guess in one sense, maybe it would hold up as in I sit down for the very first time in 5 years and 10 years. And I want a vampire fix, and this is something I've not watched before, and it's less dated than some and more dated than others. But I don't think I could I personally would never sit down and watch the Vampire Diaries again.
No, I wouldn't either.
I'm not motivated to do it. I don't think the last half of this show was strong enough to warrant it. And now that I know what happens with all of the twists and surprises, I feel like a lot of what kept everyone hooked for so long is pretty much done. I mean, once you know what happens, that's it. Unless you're really looking for some kind of foretelling or telegraphing what they were going to do. But I don't even think they did that very well. Or not very well. I mean, that's a good thing. They didn't telegraph their twists, at least for the first few seasons. They kind of did later, but I don't know. It's a tough call. Because vampires are always in style at some point. Not right now. Vampires are not in style right now, but they'll come back around, I think. So we kind of sort of hedged this question, but was it time for it to go? Would you have watched more seasons, or should it have ended sooner?
I think it should have ended sooner. I don't think I would have watched. If it had gone on longer, I probably would have jumped the shark. Cause
they were already threatening to do that. They're like, we're staying on because of this podcast and because it's almost done.
Yeah, that's what I'd like. I guess the only reason I might have kept watching is because you would have kept being like, so you're doing the podcast for this season, right? And I would have been like, damn
That's true. That is true.
That does keep me watching a lot more. Keep me watching things past the point where I probably would have normally stopped.
But there was part of you that wanted to talk about it, too.
Yeah.
You said that in one of the other recordings.
So yeah,
it's not all guilt here at CPU. I just want to say that.
Twisting our arms.
Say something nice about the show.
No, you can hate watch it if you want. I try to get people to be spicy.
I definitely think it should have ended when Elena left the show.
Or before. But definitely at least
should have been it.
Yeah.
I don't think it should have ended before because season 6 was a redeeming season.
It was redeeming. That was
6.
And Kai was great.
Yes.
And it gave Chris Wood now has a career on the CW. He started in Containment. Now he was on Supergirl. Whether he continues to be, that's one of the things we don't know. But he's very charismatic and handsome. My personal opinion.
Who is that?
Kai.
Oh, yeah, I do like him. I probably would have stopped watching. I'm glad they ended it. I was just thinking, it would have been maybe a cool ending, although you still would have had the same problem because it was still Nina. But if they had, given Catherine the cure and she had become human, and then been nice, and then Damon could have been in love with her then, and then we could have just had the Damon and Catherine. That would have been kind of a cool twist, actually, for her to end up a redeeming character once she lost her vampire-ness. I don't know. That was not, vampirism. Vampirism. Vampirism.
That's something totally different.
She probably lost that too. But I don't know. It could have been kind of a cool twist to end it that way as well. That was what I was daydreaming about while you guys were talking about things. So
I wish they made the brothers show happen earlier. Like
if it had been more about the brothers from the beginning.
Or that them being evil and not siren evil, not siren-induced evil. There was an aspect of that they never really satisfactorily explored. I mean, Damon started off kind of devil may care, but was he really evil?
No. He was chaotic neutral, honestly. Yeah, that could have been interesting.
Yeah, or spent a little bit more time on their history. I mean, I know they did a lot of flashbacks, especially when Catherine was part of the show, but I feel like it was just a little shallow.
It was. Well, and it also was just that time period and then modern day, and there was not a whole lot of flashbacks in between.
No, you're right, there wasn't.
Which could have been interesting.
Except for when the originals came and really only connected to Stefan. Because it was the Stefan and Rebecca show for a while.
Right, and his whole river past and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's true.
But still, there was a lot more they could have taken some cues from Angel, really, and developed more of that. But they didn't do that. Lots of things that they didn't do. Lots of regrets.
They still, for all of the origin stuff they did, they still never really explained where vampires really came from. Because they had the originals, but then they had people before that, too, right? We were trying to figure out if what's his name, who made Hell? Cade, how he tied into that storyline and where the timeline of that was.
Yeah, they didn't explain that. They have explained the vampire thing, but that was on the original.
Right, yeah, that was on Vampire Diaries, though. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. But yeah, I would have liked a clearer timeline for all of those more ancient evils, too.
Well, I also think they were reaching by the end.
They sure were.
Cade was a potentially interesting character, but definitely something that they pulled from other sources, kind of adapted to their story style, and then
they kind of pulled the punches from him in the end too.
Really did.
Yeah,
and gave it to Catherine. Honestly,
well, because I feel that whole storyline should have happened earlier in maybe season 5, around there, because then you could have drawn it out. You'd had a couple seasons, or at least a whole season to discover all that. And I think it was, put so late in the story that they had to rush, and so they never really tied up anything with that. And never explained things with that, how that was.
It makes me wonder how they storyboarded their seasons, because
they probably didn't, and that's the problem.
Well, I feel like maybe not by the end. I feel like they did in the beginning. And the beginning felt really well mapped out. But then as they expanded everything and added new people, reached for villains because they kept killing them off.
The first couple of seasons, or at least I know the first season, was directly tied to the books, right?
Yes, right. The first couple of seasons. So maybe after they got away from that the books or whatever, that's when they stopped losing. They didn't have a set way to go. Possibly. So they're just throwing in different, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I agree. It could have been definitely storyboarded a lot better.
I just think they lost direction with the Travelers. There was just something about that season that they then had to kind of go, oh, whoa, this is way out of control. Let's try to gather it back in. And then they never really fully did that in a way that kind of landed because things started to change.
Yeah.
Nina left, all these different things.
They didn't even need to have that whole storyline. I could have done without that. Like, it wasn't even something that was pertinent to the main focuses of the story. You know what I mean? Like, it was just thrown in.
The only germane story of that season was the Doppelganger piece, but that was really because they were trying to set it up as, are Stefan and Elena meant to be together because their earlier doppelgangers were soulmates or whatever? Does that mean that Elena and Damon can't be together? That was the question of the season at the time. But they complicated it by the Travelers, and Tyler was a Traveler, and this and that. And, there was way too many people.
Tyler is so annoying. I didn't like him.
Spoiler.
I liked him better. I liked him better than
Damon
Matt Donovan.
killed him.
Thanks, Damon.
Matt Donovan they didn't need that character.
No. I think they wanted it to, try to preserve, the
human element.
Right, well, yeah, the point of view from a human, but, in reality, how is it even possible that he remained human?
That's exactly what I'm saying. What special skills did he have? They never showed any special skills.
Policing.
Was he heavily trained in combat and guns and stuff? I don't know, because they never showed it. If they would have gave him some kind of, I've been training for years in this, and not necessarily showed it, but at least said it somehow, it came out.
I've been training this whole time, and I'm amazing now.
Even just showing, they could have started that character out from the beginning, that he was training to become a police officer, maybe going into the service or something. They didn't. It's all of a sudden at the end, this is him, and I don't know, I didn't like the character from the beginning either, so.
It was just poor writing.
Yeah,
They never gave the Matt character anything more to do.
Right, exactly.
Really, his whole purpose when he started was to be Elena's boyfriend that she ended up ditching for Stefan.
Yep.
Right. Well, and kind of the same thing with Bonnie, in that they just kept her around because if they ever wrote themselves into a hole, they were like, hey, let's use Bonnie to get us out.
But at least she had something. It wasn't much. It was a little.
I know.
But it's something. Of the diversity quotient, she was it.
That's the other thing I'm saying, is not even necessarily a different variety of relationships, but just people in general. Yeah. And it was it got to the point where it's if a black person comes on this show, they're a witch, right? That's pretty much how it turned out to be. Or the devil, which is a whole other can of worms, man. Talk about possibly racist casting. That was problematic for me, especially, going back into more of those ancient evils and stuff. It's you're talking about other countries. Why is everybody white? Why, I don't even the sirens, why were they both white chicks? Why?
With really, sorry, I'm going to say it, poor actresses.
Oh my god, no. Especially the one.
The one that survived.
I did not like her.
The one that never died, no matter how much they tried to kill her.
Yeah,
the one
she was the worst actress.
She's gone on to some other CW, I think Dynasty. She's now on the Dynasty reboot.
Why would you remake that show?
Because there's no original ideas left in Hollywood. They have to remake, reboot, or repurpose. That's what I just said.
So bad.
Popular opinion time.
Yes. Or unpopular, possibly. But I don't care.
No, I feel like a lot of people have said that lately.
Okay,
but yeah.
Well, I believe it.
But I think it's true.
And it's really sad because the siren piece of it was something that not a lot of people do.
Yeah, and it could have been really
It could have been really interesting.
They could have cast a better actress.
Two better actors.
Two better
I didn't like the other one very much either, but at least her exposure was more limited.
Yeah. Well, and she wasn't so, I don't know, the girl that they cast in that other part, I can't remember her name. I just remember the other girl was Celine. But
Sybil.
Thank you. She was just, I don't know, and she was very about using her appearance and her privilege of being beautiful to not have any substance, and it was really annoying. Because I was beautiful people are people too. Also, I didn't really think she was actually that beautiful, but I sure thought she was. And everyone sure acted like she was. I don't know. It was just...
It was the power. The siren power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then the other girl wasn't like that.
That's true.
You know, like it...
They never did explain why one was more, again, sociopathic than the other one.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it didn't even...
The one flashback did not
give
us any clues.
That's a character where they could have gone darker and actually expanded on the sociopath, because I don't think she really exhibited enough things to be a true sociopath, but it would have been cool if she was. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that actress was strong enough to do that anyway.
Plus, I think there was a really big focus on pacing on this show, because everything had to be breakneck. Did you notice that?
Yes.
They didn't really take a lot of slowdown time.
No.
And when there was slowdown time, it was really only very brief and for the main characters, never for anybody else.
Right. And that's part of, I think, what made it feel soap opera-esque as well, was just that literally if you like looked away from the screen for 5 minutes, you could look back and be like, what is happening right now? How did this, you know?
So the Vampire Diaries, I did ask you this way back when, but now I'm going to ask you this again, because we've done now several episodes. This is officially CPU's longest running serial panel, which will end. Oh, there'll be others.
We should have cake.
The originals.
We should have what?
Cake or something.
I know. I thought you said catered. I was like, yeah, party.
I mean that too.
No budget.
Where's my taco bar?
It's a good idea, but for later.
Okay.
So the Vampire Diaries was created by Julie Plec and Kevin Williamson. This happens to be their very first co-creation. What did you think of their first time out? Would you watch other shows they create together?
Maybe.
Not so sure.
I would be intrigued, maybe. Like, if I heard, like, from the creators of Vampire Diaries, I might be like, okay, yeah, I'll try watching. If it was also a premise that interested me, I would maybe try watching it.
It was based on other books. You know what I mean? Like, this was originally started out based on the J.L. Smith.
So you don't have any faith in their ability to be original?
Right. Exactly.
She's like, yes.
Because I know how this went. Once they got away from them books and they started out on their own adventuring, it fell apart.
Well, except Julie Plec then co-created the originals, not with him, with somebody else.
Now see, that was the weak spot right there. And she realized it.
Aww.
No.
But he also created or co-created, amongst others, Wasteland, Glory Days, Dawson's Creek, Hidden Palms, Stalker, The Following, and Time After Time, which
I've only seen a couple of those, and I didn't like the couple I saw.
Oh, so
The
you're
only
like,
one
no,
that
Kevin. Kevin
the
bad.
Following, didn't like that.
That's true. I tried to watch that.
Was that a show, or are you talking about the
show with Kevin Bacon?
Yeah, with Kevin Bacon and about a serial killer.
Oh, yeah. I did watch that.
He was a drunk. He was an alcoholic, right?
I did watch a little bit
detective.
of that.
To be honest, I can't remember.
He
a
was.
lot.
He was an alcoholic. He played an
so.
alcoholic.
He had been, like, kicked off the force.
Yeah,
I did watch a little bit of that. I never finished it.
Yeah.
What I watched was good, but
it was alright, but it didn't go anywhere for me. Like, it was just the same.
And
apparently I don't like that writer.
Yeah, and then the only other thing I've heard of that list was Dawson's Creek.
Oh, and
I did not watch that.
And I watched it and didn't like that either.
That's not really in my purview. I don't care about
I think I was too young to watch that show.
Now I feel old.
I know. I think
Sorry,
I was
guys.
too old to watch that show. I was
Or
like,
maybe-
Dawson's Creek, this isn't 90210.
Or maybe my mom just wouldn't let me. I don't know. When did that... What... Was that on cable, or...
It was on cable.
It was on the WB.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, maybe that... I might not have had cable. That might be why I didn't watch
The
it.
WB wasn't cable.
Cable.
Oh, well then, I don't know.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, I was going to say late 90s.
No.
I was in my late
I didn't
20s.
watch it.
And all of those actors, where are they now?
Yeah.
Maybe I just wasn't cool enough to watch it.
Maybe it
don't
just
know
wasn't
what
your
to
type
say.
of show.
I think so. Well, I think around that time I was just like binge watching Billy Madison and Wayne's World over and over. So I didn't really watch
Those are very different things.
Very different things. But
That's insight.
Yep. It was
Shut up.
completely that and like TRL. That's all I watched. I think.
TRL.
Yeah,
They brought that back, you know.
I heard that.
I heard
haven't
it's
seen
not
it.
good.
I mean, I'm not surprised. Is Carson Daly hosting it still?
I don't think so.
That's alright. But still, not surprised. I don't know. That was
because
a weird
here
show.
again, remember my passion statement? Nothing's original anymore, except the originals, which Julie
You know what show they
co-created.
should bring back is Say What Karaoke. That show is awesome. I did watch that as well. It was really good. It was like a karaoke competition.
You're convincing me, and I've never even heard of it.
It was really good. You should. Well, because they used to have the show Say What on, and I think it was on MTV or VH1. I think it was MTV though. And it was just literally the music video with the words at the bottom. So then they had Say What Karaoke, where they would have people, I think that were like on spring break in Cancun or something, like get on stage and sing karaoke to these songs, and they all had to prepare. It was like a karaoke competition. And then at the end, there was like a Wheel of Death thing where they put songs on there and they spun it, and you had to sing it even if you didn't even know it. It was really fun.
So one time I watched MTV when it had the music videos, and then
And nothing else.
and when they made shows and started making it more shows and less music videos, I stopped watching.
Mm-hmm. I understand.
I stopped watching.
Well, I definitely stopped watching once they stopped playing music videos altogether. That was stupid.
Yeah. Your name is Music Television. That's a different podcast.
I also miss Pop-Up Video from
Oh,
VH1.
yeah.
That was a great...
They brought that back for a moment. But then
Did they?
Yeah,
I
I don't
missed
think
it.
a lot of people are watching the VH1 though. Sorry, VH1.
I liked VH1 better. They had
too.
better shows
Well,
in general.
Yeah.
And better music videos.
they're geared more towards not so much the youths.
The youths.
The youths.
I was not one of those ever, apparently. Except for when I watched Billy Madison over
You're an
and over.
old soul. Except for Billy.
I blame it on my parents making me listen to classic rock all the time. Making me, quote unquote. I like it, so it's fine.
It was good education.
Exactly.
So Julie Pleck, Originals, also did the Tomorrow People and Containment. Do you have any interest in watching these shows now that Vampire, other than Jen watches the Originals?
Containment just came out. Was that it, right?
It was a limited series, one season in 2016.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
I've
see
seen
that.
that, but I haven't watched it.
I almost said pinned. I think I put the Tomorrow People on my queue at one point, but I don't think I've watched it.
I did watch the Tomorrow People.
I did as well.
And I thought it was pretty good.
was
the first
alright.
few episodes of
It
it.
got-
and
I thought it got better. I thought it started off poor.
maybe that. It could have been that, actually. That was a while ago.
It was a while ago.
Like 2015 or something?
About that.
Yeah.
Because one of the actors then went on to be Lincoln on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
And then Peyton List has been on The Flash, and then she was on Frequency, and then that got canceled because I don't like her. That's not why it got canceled.
I think those shows are more in line with the type of things that I'm interested in watching, so it's really...
They were all on the CW.
Yeah, well, see, and then just sign me up.
I watched like 10 of the shows that are on there.
I mean, I think it's highly likely that I would watch another show that she created just because she seems to create the type of things that I would normally be interested in watching. I don't pay attention too much to creators and producers, probably as much as I should. It would probably help me avoid certain shows.
I agree with that, definitely. If I start paying attention to who's writing it, and I really like this show and this show, oh, it's the same writer, no wonder. Mm-hmm. I just don't pay attention to that, but maybe now I'll start to do that.
Would you follow any of the individual ensemble actors from Vampire Diaries to any new project? Why or why not?
Yeah. They go to the Originals. I'm hoping that they do. I'm hoping
that's the only one.
You know, I love Ian Somerhalder, so I would probably watch.
I've watched Ian on everything.
I'm hoping he goes to the Originals. I'm hoping they somehow
especially if he.
draw
I really
him in.
like when he plays the more like he was in the beginning with Damon. I really like the snarkiness of that character. He was all right on Lost, but he was
Klaus needs
Lost
that.
dog-ish.
Klaus
because
needs
he
that
was in love
buddy.
with his stepsister.
Yeah,
That's weird. And then
maybe
and
he
then
should be
died,
on Game of
spoiler.
Thrones. Anyways.
But then he'll die for sure.
Yeah, because everybody does.
Eventually. You don't know when.
There's gonna be a war.
I don't know. I'm not there yet.
Oh.
See, Klaus does not. Let me get back to the Vampire Diaries. Klaus doesn't have any friends. He has his brother and his sister.
So you think you'd get along with Damon?
I think they could be best buddies.
I don't think you understand their characters very well.
I think that they,
especially Klaus. He doesn't coexist very well.
But he's changing.
Okay, so
His
that
character
makes
is
him coexist
changing.
with Elijah better.
I would watch more things that Kai did. I like him.
Chris Wood?
Yes, Chris Wood.
Are you watching Supergirl?
I'm trying.
It gets better after season 1.
That's what I've heard.
Once they jumped from CBS to the CW and lost Ally McBeal.
I just want to get to Lena Luthor, but I haven't gotten that far.
I've tried.
Yes,
so, yeah,
we know. I like it.
I'm trying to think of anyone else I really like. I mean, I think it'd be one of those things where I would watch the show and then I'd be pleasantly surprised that somebody from the Vampire Diaries was in it. But I don't know that I would specifically watch anything. I don't know that I would pay enough attention to go, oh, so-and-so is in this, great, I'm going to watch it.
I would for Ian. I watched him on Smallville, I've watched him on Lost, I've watched him on this.
I probably would if it was advertised like Ian Somerhalder. I'd be like, oh, interesting, I want to watch that. I was really impressed with overall Nina's acting in the show, so I might watch her in something too. I just was underwhelmed by, I don't think it was just her, honestly, by the chemistry in the end, and I don't think it was just her. But.
Yeah, I'm not as convinced by, I mean, Nina did a good job on the show, but the show was a very specific set of circumstances, and I'm not convinced that I would follow her specifically.
I think I would give her, like, another shot and see what else she does, But I also feel the same way about Paul Wesley, and I like Stefan. I like that character a lot. I know Stefan has his detractors as well. I always compared him to sort of being the angel of the show, so I always had a way to relate to him, and I don't think Paul Wesley by himself would make me want to watch a project.
No. It wouldn't me. I never really cared for that actor. I mean, he's not bad. It doesn't.
You know who I would follow is, I don't know her name, but Jo. If she was on something else, I would watch her.
Oh, Jo.
I really liked her.
I would follow the guy that plays Alaric.
Matt Davis.
Yeah, he's good. I really
He's been in a couple movies. No big projects.
Yeah, he was just in something that I rewatched. I don't remember what it was now. Shoot. I just remember I was watching it with my fiance, and I was like, it's Alaric. And she's like, no, it's so-and-so.
He cropped up on the originals.
Did he?
With a little bit of Deus
Ex
Machina knowledge.
He did. I was going to say,
he did.
Alaric.
For a second there.
He was Alaric.
Yeah, he was Alaric.
They were looking for something, and he just happened to have that. That was the weakest one of that particular piece. But he did show up, and yeah, I have this in Mystic Falls. We have it in our vault. Oh, by the way, I have a school. You should send your daughter.
Yes,
Klaus.
that's right. Boy. Maybe they are going to do something like that. Maybe they'll bring them over, Alaric, and for the school, and Caroline.
You know, spoilers, season finale.
Sorry. I'm just guessing.
You're guessing? You haven't watched it?
No, I have. What, for the originals?
The season finale.
Yeah.
They went to the school.
Yeah.
Oh, are we being clever and hinting at it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I wrecked it. What else
all your
is
fault.
new? I know. Would you recommend The Vampire, now that you've watched all 8 seasons and you've come out the other side, would you recommend The Vampire Diaries to others? Why or why not?
No.
I might say it's worth watching the first at least 4 seasons.
That'd be really short.
Just watch the first 4 episodes.
The first 4 seasons. Why do I want to say episodes? Seasons. It's just anything after 5, except, 6 does kind of pick up, like you said, it does a little bit, but it's now worth what you get in the end, I guess.
That's why I wouldn't recommend it. In general, because I would feel bad if they got hooked and had to watch it through all the bad seasons, or felt they had to watch it. I guess no one has to.
It's probably not something I'll just
unless somebody was like I really enjoyed like Ian Somerhalder in Smallville or something. I'd be like, oh, he was really good in the Vampire Diaries. Maybe you should watch it. But I don't think I would just be like, oh my god, watch the Vampire Diaries. It's the best show.
I would really only recommend it to somebody who's a vampire fiction enthusiast. And I wouldn't even say it's the best. It's not the best of those things. I do think it ends better and is better than True Blood, after having come out the other side of that one.
I never watched that.
I watched both. There's pretty much no vampire show I haven't watched. So I feel like a little bit of an authority. I think your more classic shows like the Buffyverse are going to be better suited and be funnier. But I mean, if you're a vampire enthusiast and you want a TV show and one that didn't get canceled right away and one that actually ended in a somewhat satisfying, if not completely satisfying way, this would be it. I wouldn't recommend True Blood.
I wouldn't recommend that either.
Because True Blood was
the way it
good
ended.
and then it went downhill and never recovered. Whereas at least the Vampire Diaries went up, 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 went way down, then went up, 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 and then leveled off. So that's kind of how I feel. But I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think that this show would appeal to anybody who doesn't enjoy that kind of fiction anyway.
Yeah.
There's no way I could think of all the people, and I know a lot of nerds. I am a nerd. I don't think there is any particular person in my life that I would say, oh my God, you would love the Vampire Diaries, who isn't or hasn't already watched it.
There's some better shows on it.
There are some better shows out there. There's some better shows on TV, period. Now, it is kind of unheard of in this day and age to get to an 8 seasons, so for that, but they were on the CW too, so you kind of got to
I just think the CW doesn't like to cancel things.
Not the ones that are really super successful. And Vampire Diaries had a really strong premiere season. Like, that was their highest rated thing for a long time until the Arrowverse came along. Yeah. It beat Supernatural. Supernatural was its highest rated thing for a while, and then it came along. And
yeah, but I could keep watching that show.
I agree.
Me too. I think it has better longevity.
I agree with that as well. But that's for our Supernatural podcast, which all of us are already on. Woo! So at this point, other than what we've already said, is there anything else you wish to say looking back on the Vampire Diaries seasons 1 through 8?
I wasted a lot of time on that show.
I watched a lot of it. I got to a point where I was like, oh, I have to watch Vampire Diaries.
I would have them stacked up in Hulu because at that point I wasn't watching it directly from CW. I don't have cable, so I wasn't watching it directly from CW like I do now. But on Hulu, and I would literally get 6 or 7 episodes all chunked up, and I would rather watch all different shows that I really didn't care for over that. And it got to be my worst, least liked show.
Which is sad because I really did like it in the beginning.
Yeah.
I wish I could go back to the moment, to the feelings I had at the beginning about the show. But yeah, I agree with you. I wasted a lot of time watching that show.
I don't feel like I wasted time. And I don't feel like I hate watched it, but I do feel like I will agree with the sentiment that Kelsey just said, where there were feelings that came with watching the first few seasons that were never matched again. And for that reason, I don't feel like I wasted time, but that's why I wouldn't recommend it. Because people are going to be let down. Right. So, and I think that sums it up pretty well. Well, before we sign off, I have a little gift for you, and yes, I'm going to record it.
What?
So, in honor of being the longest running CPU panel for the very first time, which is a milestone for us, I hereby present you with these small tokens of gratitude. What are they?
It's Elena's necklace.
It is Elena's necklace. You'll have to coordinate so you don't wear it on the same day, but...
well, thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah.
And I know you're on other panels, and you'll hopefully be on other panels.
We'll be back.
But it's such a milestone, and so I really appreciate you doing it.
Thanks.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
It has been a while. Over a couple of years. And at least 4 or 5 episodes. For a serial show that's long. Like, we have series ones, but they do 4 or 5 at a time.
Yeah.
You'll get presents too whenever those end. But they're really trucking, but this is the longest running show that has made it this many episodes. So, and you stuck through it.
And we stuck through it.
We made it.
Even though you felt like your years of life have been wasted.
My time has no longer been wasted because I got an Elena necklace. It's worth it.
I hope you're not totally
No, I'm not totally.
Well, thank you. And thank you, CPU listeners and fans of the Vampire Diaries, because, of course, now that we've said all this mushy stuff, I have to say this. CPU is produced by Backpocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, and hails from the Grand Rapids, Michigan place. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or Google Play. That means give us stars, give us comments, give us reviews, spread the word. We're actually growing at somewhat shocking rates, but keep helping us do that. If you have suggestions on shows we might consider, contact us at our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, or via our social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, though we're adding new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time. We have several more new episodes coming down the pike, we always do, and you can find all of our old episodes via the web or the website. We're everywhere. Subscribe to the blog, our channels, social media, stay up on new events and episodes. Now, if you want to watch the Vampire Diaries, the entire show can be streamed on Netflix. That's who's got the contract to stream it. And at this point, this concludes our ongoing coverage of the Vampire Diaries, though the show may crop up in panel discussion or two from time to time as the future progresses. And I would be remiss if I didn't at least plug our Originals panel, which we do have, and which Jen is a member of. So until the next time, our next episode, or if you're watching the Originals until that one, keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned.